First, there was Menace. Now, Gnosis presents a DMA Design game.
Lemon Amiga presents a Playguide video review. Sit back and enjoy the show.
The biggest unanswered question is where is the money?
There's a whole lot more coming.
Hello there everybody, welcome to another Lemon Amiga gameplay guide and review. This time we'll be checking out Menace. This is a horizontal shoot 'em up game. It was developed by DMA Design and published by Psygnosis in 1988. The game begins with the obligatory Psygnosis ham mode digitized picture. Then we get to move on to the title screen, where we can see it was coded by Dave Jones, graphics by Tony Smith. The game will then move through an arcade sequence where we get to see the high score table, and also a list of the power-ups that are available in the game as well. Then give us a visual representation of the levels in the game, and then it will give us a rolling demo where we can see what this game is all about. It's obviously a horizontal shooter. You see DMA Design proudly labelled in the bottom right corner. The options, there are two of them, Rookie Mode or Expert, and for this one we'll be choosing the Rookie Mode. Let's start off at the Sea of Carno. This is Menace. This is the prequel to Blood Money, and when you face the enemies they will attack in a wave, and if you can destroy the whole wave that will drop a power up, and the power up changes its icon, and the more you hit the power up the more that will change, and that means that hopefully you should be able to select which power ups that you want. But it only gives us a very limited time to not only shoot them but collect them as well. So for the power-ups it's best to aim for the monster on the far right of the screen, and then that means it gives us as much time as possible to shoot the power-up. I seem to be collecting lots of speed-ups at the moment. That's definitely not what is required, because speed-ups will simply throw us into the enemies, and I'm not even sure whether the walls kill us or not, but we can definitely travel behind the scenery. We can also collect things which fire backwards as well, or we can use them to, well, they fire backwards when we move forwards, or they fire forwards when we move backwards, so that can be a handy defender. Playing this with the automatic fire at the moment, so I can really lay into those guys, but of course originally this game depended on very fast reactions and being able to shoot things very quickly. With the auto fire it's very fun, and definitely the game is very much more difficult if you don't have that. Bottom of the screen we have a shield, and that's a pretty meaty shield that will last a long time, and so we can take a fair amount of damage before we blow up, and we get unlimited continues, although we only get one life. That's a shield that I just picked up, and that means we can lay into those enemies and destroy them, and wait until they've almost disappeared, and then you can see we can get another one of those outriders. And the bosses in this game are fairly easy. In fact, if you pile into them, you should be able to blow them up. Now we move on to Vanguard Warzone. The only downside of facing those end of level enemies and blasting into them is that our shield will carry over from level to level, and so you'll have to remember to have some amount of shield remaining. But if we destroy those tokens often enough and blow those up all the way to the end, that should give us a shield charge power up. That means that we can carry on, and it means we get all of our life force back. And you can also see cannons on the bottom of that screen, and lasers as well. It is possible to have cannons and lasers firing, although you can't unfortunately power this up to standards of other games that we've seen, not even R-Type. So this is an arcade shooter, but it hasn't got, unfortunately, all the weapon types of something like R-Type. The game itself was originally called Game with No Name, and it was inspired by Salamander, and I think they even ripped some of the sound effects from the Salamander arcade unit. They basically walked in there and leant on the machine and recorded things with a really crappy microphone and ported those onto the Amiga. Many shoot 'em ups, if you have the speed and the firepower, it's not too bad to keep up with that. And of course, if you shoot the thing all the way off the other side of the screen, well, it's difficult to see because of the scenery in our way, but it is actually possible. Look at that, we are now travelling too quickly on this level, and that's definitely a disadvantage. Remember, the background music also appeared in the Lemmings game, and we got to play a Menace level within Lemmings, which is coming up, and that's very nice. You can see the background graphics are nothing really to write home about at this stage, but the coders of this game apparently were basic coders at that time, and they developed their skills over the years. Now we move into Carnage Rift. And Carnage Rift uses the same graphical style as that Lemmings level, so people who've played Lemmings and got that far with it should be a bit more familiar with this one. I think it's great that we can move through the scenery without colliding with it. There's nothing worse than these tunnel-like games where you end up colliding with the scenery all the time, like Delta, and that just means you blow up and everything. With this one, you do have a massive shield to worry about, and if we are running out of shield, we can always top that up again. When they developed this game, DMA Design were actually called Acme Software, and they had to change the name from Acme because that was already taken up by a design company. And you might remember Acme from basically the Roadrunner cartoons and that kind of thing, so they had to change the name, and this game was originally called Coppercon 1, Coppercon, i.e. the copper coprocessor inside the Amiga. And Coppercon 1 is a play on words of Capricorn 1, but they changed it to Draconia, and then they had to change the name again of this game because Draconia sounded too much like Draconus, which was a game on the Commodore 64, so they changed it again to Menace. Programmers for this game were Dave Jones, and you might remember Dave from the Lemmings games. He worked on virtually all of the Lemmings games. And the graphics were Tony Smith, and Dave Jones and Tony Smith even almost called themselves Alias Smith and Jones, which was actually a TV show on British TV at the time, and Mel Smith and Griff Rhys-Jones, but they didn't use that, they used DMA, and that's direct memory access or direct memory address, both of those referring to the Amiga architecture of being able to tap a code in and it directly accesses that memory spot and runs it. Whether it's a graphic, it shows it, if it's music it plays it, if it's a sound effect it plays it. So you can point to any memory address on the Amiga and it will go straight there. Going to the tropics of Menace, and now the graphics do step up and we do get some nice colourful trees and some plants as well. It's not quite as good as Star Ray and the games that came slightly afterwards. One of the difficult sections of this particular level is trying to shoot this guy. And you can see he's already wiped out most of our energy trying to shoot him. You have to fire through that tiny gap, and that's not particularly easy, and you definitely need the energy recharge by the time you get to this point. Unfortunately it doesn't quite give us enough time, even with, well, I've managed to get the shield, actually it doesn't quite give us enough time, even with the auto fire, to get that shield recharged, unless you can hit something all the way over on the side of that screen. And you can see now homing missiles, and I really hate those homing missiles because they really do take a long time to dodge. You can see we've got 0 shield remaining as well. After that it says our ship was destroyed and we proved no match for the defences of Draconia. It then tells us all of the collectibles that we've got and the score that we've managed to accumulate as well. If we've gotten a high score, then the next thing to do is to enter our name on the high score table, and of course that's the arcade method of entering our name. This is the first time I've played this game in many years. You can see my highest scores are already on there, but unfortunately I died. If you can get through this level, it's more or less quite easy to get through to the end of the game from here, or at least on this average mode that we're playing at the moment. If you decide to restart, it gives the shield all the way back again, and it's not too bad for losing those weapons, because you can always pick up those weapons along the way. Now it's a matter of staying clean and not taking too much peripheral damage, and basically some of these enemies are easy to kill, and you just need to stay on that safe spot, and some of those are quite difficult. graphics artist in Menace, Tony Smith, also worked on Sorcery Plus, which came out in 1988, and also Blood Money as well in 1989. Of course, the music was created by none other than David Whittaker again, and he's created music for a large chunk of games, including Carrier Command, that we'll be reviewing the series, Epic, Wrath of the Demon, and the Xenon games as well. He also helped with those, and of course Speedball and Shadow of the Beast. See that this game has definitely been influenced by some arcade games, and everything appears in a wave, so as soon as you shoot that wave then that's over, and then it will repeat all of the enemy patterns again, so it's basically two sets of enemy waves which appear twice on every level. So if you can get through it the first time, you should be able to get through it the second time. And look at that, our shield is bottoming out again. So the only problem with this level is it is very difficult to get that shield recharge because of the placement of everything, and if you walk forwards and walk into those collectibles, it might even be possible to walk into them and blow them up a bit quicker. It gives us no idea when that shield is about to run out, it simply disappears. And that means that we face the end of level boss now with virtually zero energy. Look at that, I blew it up and died myself. It's very difficult unless you pile into that thing, and it is possible if I just had a scrap of extra energy. So you can see these levels aren't too difficult. So let's try that again. It would have been possible to get all the way through it with just a bit more practice. So let's fast forward through it, and you can see it is possible to blow this thing up and to get that shield back. I think that's the only way to get that shield back, is to blow this thing up, and it gives you two chances to do that on this level. So that's definitely one way to do it, and because I've now blown that thing up, well, we've now got two outriders, or whatever that might be, a drone, and they definitely help because they can fire backwards, and that means that if we don't take too much damage, it means that we can get through, hopefully it's at the end of the level. But look at that, these homing missiles are a real pain, and that just means that we're just a bit too short now of energy for getting rid of that end of level boss, which is a shame. Just a bit more energy and we could have done it. If you can get through this level and you get through the other ones, of course, there's only I think 2 more levels after this to the end of the game, so if you can get through this, it should mean it is at least possible. Look at that, it gives us the extra thing. We didn't even need it in that case. Could have even got a shield there for free. So there's definitely tips and tricks to remember. I think the graphics are reasonably well drawn. I wouldn't say that they are immaculate. It's a step up from a public domain game, and the sound effects really help, and the playability is basically where it's at. If you like these horizontal shoot 'em ups, this is one of the easiest that I've played, and it's definitely one of the most fun, especially with that auto fire. It's definitely got that kind of 16-bit charm, and of course this was also released on the Atari ST as well, so this was a 16-bit platform game. Taking a look at the scores, Amiga Power gave this the lowest score at 57%, saying that there aren't enough levels and it's way too easy. Ace awarded this 67%. The current Lemon Amiga score is 71% from 110 votes, and the C Amiga score is 70%. The Games Machine gave this 78%. Amiga User International awarded this 80%, and Amiga Format awarded this a huge 90%, saying that it's pure arcade violence and it's incredibly addictive. Certainly if you can get the power-ups, 2 Outriders or Outriggers or whatever they're called, and the cannons and the lasers and the shields as well, that just means that this level looks like an absolute doddle. And it is. Basically we can walk straight into those enemies with that shield on, and that's great. As soon as we've got through half of the level, then the waves just repeat all over again. Now, all we need to do is pull back, and those sidearms will fire forwards, and then if we do that and fire into it just like that, then we only need to take maybe 5 or 6 points of damage, and that means that we could actually have survived and blown up the boss, even with virtually no shield whatsoever. So very unlucky not to get through the tropics first time, so that means there's only 2 more levels to go now. Definitely see the problems that the magazine reviewers pointed out. If you're a veteran of these side-scrolling games, then this is probably too easy, but there is a difficult mode you can select on the options menu, and that gives us basically twice the score and also twice the difficulty. So it means there is a challenge. It means if you're not very good at these games you can get through it, and if you are, it means that there is a bit of a challenge there. So hopefully something for everybody. It's a shame that the graphics really step up with every single level, with this level perhaps having the best graphics in the game, and there are certain arcadey elements present that have been borrowed from different genres and different arcade machines and different enemy patterns and things like that. So I think the graphics, once they get going, are well done. And the gameplay, well, look at that, reminds us of something like Turrican, where an enemy comes together in a huge block, we have to blow it up. And its tactics in this game, you have to strategically wait for the enemies to reach all the way over to the right hand side so that you can get that shield back, or whatever you want, and the shield recharge or the ship shield, whichever. So it has got good things on offer. And by the time you get to this stage, it's not too difficult. Unfortunately, the final stage is very difficult, and if you can get onto the final stage with full energy and everything else, then it's a joy, and it is possible. And I think we're going to get to the final boss on this playthrough. I haven't played this game in many years, so apart from bungling through the jungle, I don't think this is a particularly bad play at the moment. When Menace was almost finished, the Acme Soft crew, or the DMA crew, tried to sell this to Heaton. They contacted Andrew Braybrook, and he recommended that Heaton take it up and buy it. And Heaton said, yeah, great, we want it, but we want it to be the next Zynaps. Can you convert Zynaps for us? And the guys at DMA said, well, no, actually, we can make more money releasing this as our own game. So they turned it down. Unfortunately, they didn't go with Heaton. They went for the Liverpool-based Psygnosis, or Psygnosis, whichever way you want to pronounce that, And in the sequel Blood Money, the guys that actually did the DMA Design game introduction actually apparently delivered 2 versions of the intro, one that said Signosis and one that said Psygnosis, and they went for the Psygnosis, so Signosis chose the wrong one apparently, and that's why everybody calls them Psygnosis. And so whatever they are called, with all those scores combined, it means this game gets an average score of 7 out of 10. You can definitely see the heritage in this game, and guys with jetpacks and things like that. And this is the last level, and it's the most boring of the levels, and it makes it very, very difficult to progress. I think this is where you normally get to on a high scored run, and if you can get this far, obviously you're lined up for a good score. If you can't and you have to retry it, then you're going to lose all that score, and it's great that it gives us infinite continues. And so the enemies are nice and colourful on this final level, but the background seems to be an afterthought. Final level, the game gives us all the tricks in the book. Look at that, enemies following us around so we can't shoot them, and they disappear before we can shoot them, and enemies with jetpacks looking like Zynaps there. So definitely you can see where Heaton got the idea from to convert Zynaps, but they didn't, they got somebody else to convert it instead. So this game definitely has heritage on the Amiga, it's definitely got fans, and many people played this game or something like this as one of their first games on the Amiga, because it was everywhere. Everybody who had an Amiga knew about or played this game. And you can see you don't even have to attack enemies, you can simply allow them to disappear off the screen. But that's as far as my luck held out. Unfortunately, playing this game, we got to that last level, but unfortunately didn't beat it. And you can definitely check out other reviews online from maybe Shop97 and things like that. They definitely complete the game, and they'll probably give you a better review. But that's my play guide to it. You fire loads of weapons and pick up tokens, and then you get a nice big fat high score. So that's my play of this game, and thank you for watching. We'll see you again in another Lemon Amiga play guide at some point, sometime soon.
The biggest unanswered question is, where is the money?